Well, let's get going. The Anaglyph Jukebox. Joe, tell us a little bit about this week's selection.
Well, we're moving into the Halloween season, so the next five jukeboxes are all going to be monsterific and monster themed. And today's jukebox, we're starting with the last great Universal Pictures film monster, The Creature from the Black Lagoon. And one of the wonderful distinctions for this piece of movie magic is that this creature was created by a wonderful woman, Millicent Patrick. She also did the creature design for This Island Earth, the Metaluna mutant, and it came from outer space from the Ray Bradbury story, kind of a globy, globby, nebulous sort of thing. That's her design as well. So, without any further ado, let's go and check in on Millicent Patrick and the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Welcome to today's edition of the Anaglyph Jukebox. You never know what you'll find on the old jukebox. Let's press B31. Okay, we've got The Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D. Quote, if you're not doing anything at all, 4 minutes is possible, but not if you're moving in the water. If you're swimming fast or fighting, you use up a lot of oxygen, and it cuts it down to, at the most, 2 minutes. Rico Browning. Rico Browning played the Gill Man in all the underwater scenes for the 3 Creatures from the Black Lagoon films. These scenes were shot by a second unit in Walkulla Springs, Florida, and at the studio lot. The designer of the Gill Man was Disney animator Millicent Patrick, though her role was deliberately downplayed by the studio's makeup artist, Bud Westmore, who for over 50 years claimed sole credit for the creature's conception. Read Mallory O'Meara's excellent book for more, The Lady from the Black Lagoon, Hollywood Monsters and the Lost Legacy of Millicent Patrick. In addition, Jack Keevan, who worked on The Wizard of Oz and made prosthetics for amputees during World War II, created the bodysuit, while Chris Mueller Jr. sculpted the head. Revenge of the Creature, 1955, was also filmed in 3D, but The Creature Walks Among Us, 1956, was filmed in 2D. Producer William Allen was attending a 1941 dinner party after the filming of Citizen Kane, in which he played the reporter Thompson, when a Mexican cinematographer, Gabriel Figueroa, told him about the myth of a race of half-fish, half-human creatures in the Amazon River. A decade later, Allen wrote a story titled The Sea Monster, using Beauty and the Beast as inspiration. This became the basis for Universal's The Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D in 1954. Clint Eastwood has a small role in his very first screen appearance.
Up from the depths of the mighty Amazon comes a creature to astound and terrorize the world.
No.
Creature from the Black Lagoon. Shocking in the realism of the screen's first underwater three-dimension thrill.
Sounds incredible, but it appeared to be human. I tell you, it's the greatest find yet. Nothing compares to it.
Grimly, men of daring venture into a dread world underwater, stalking a creature of frightening fury, a creature stirred to strange emotions by its first sight of a woman. You'll see the most amazing underwater photography that the screen has ever known in this strangest of all science fiction adventures. Creature from the Black Lagoon, starring Richard Carlson and Julia Adams, even more amazing in 3 dimensions. Science couldn't explain it, but there it was, alive in the deep, deep waters of the Amazon. A throwback to a creature that had existed 100 million years ago, immensely strong and destructive. A woman's beauty, the bait that brought it out of its lair. See underwater thrills never photographed before. See Titanic underwater battles never dreamed of before in this most terrifying of the science fiction adventures.
That was wonderful. Now up, Paul Hutchins, 3D Journeys. Hi, Paul. We went to the depths of the Amazon. You're going to take us to the opposite depths.
Yes,
Tell us a little
indeed.
bit
Thank
about
you. Thank you. Yeah, these are a few shots of the Shuttleworth Air Collection, and the air show takes place several times a year. The Shuttleworth collection was founded by Richard Shuttleworth in 1928. He was a wealthy adventurer and racing car driver and aviator, and his mother continued the collection after his death in an RAF accident in 1940. There must be 50, 60 aeroplanes in the collection, pre-First World War, in between wars, and Second World War. The highlights are they have 2 RAF Hurricanes from the Second World War and a Spitfire.
Those magnificent men in their flying machine, they go up to the up, they go down to the down. They enchantle the ladies and steal the scene with their up to the up, and their down to the down. Up, down, flying around, looping the loop and defying the crowd. They're all rightfully keen, those magnificent men in their flying machines. They can fly up and down with their feet in the air. They don't think of danger, they really don't care. Newton was big, he had made a mistake to see those young men and the chances they take. Those magnificent men in their flying machine, they go up to the up, they go down to the down. They enchantle the ladies and steal the scene with their up to the up, and their down to the down. Up, down, flying around, looping the loop and defying the crowd. They're all rightfully keen, those magnificent men in their flying machines. Those magnificent men in their flying machines, they go up to the up, they go down to the down. Those magnificent men, those magnificent men, those magnificent men in their flying machines.
So, without further ado, I know there's a finger somewhere ready to press that button. Fireworks in 3D. Now, how did you think of this? Well, let's get to the simple stuff.
So I've been doing a fireworks since about 2002, and um, what really impressed me was the first time I saw one of Mark Wilkie's videos. He did some stereoscopic video of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra in concert. And when he talked about how he did it, when he bought tickets to this show, he went with his wife. They didn't sit next to each other. They sat with two people between them, so they were 3 seats apart in order to get the necessary separation so that one of them could film the left eye and one of them could film the right eye. And the people between them realized they were together, say, hey, do you want to switch seats so you can sit next? No, 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 no. We want to sit this way. And then what he had to do was, since the cameras were handheld, they didn't allow you to use tripods in the concert. They didn't allow you to use professional cameras. So everything was handheld. He had to do all of this in post-production to get everything aligned in terms of the aim and the timing, and produce some very spectacular 3D videos. And I actually, in one of the links that I put in the chat, if you look at the article, there are actually links that you can look at Mark's videos on YouTube of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. They filmed 4 different songs in stereoscopic, full color video. And I was so impressed, and I said, okay, the skills required to film a live concert, those are the same skills that someone would need to film a fireworks show. And Mark and I are in the same club, the Cascade Stereoscopic Club. So I said to Mark, hey, do you want to shoot some video of fireworks? And he had previously shot some fireworks videos from a distance. And the idea of being able to get right up into the restricted area to set everything up and shoot it, he thought that's a great idea. So he took me up on the offer. And so he's been filming my fireworks shows ever since then. So the videos that the first part of the videos you saw were from 2015. That was the Liberty Lake show. It was actually one of the worst shows that I ever had to work because it was in far eastern Washington, and the temperatures that day were over 100 degrees, and we were working, and that's not easy work, as you probably realize, to set everything up. But the reason that I got sent way out there, it's a long story. I won't go into it. Maybe ask me at the after party. I'll give you more details. But anyway, after that, we got to do some better shows, and Mark's been filming them ever since. And I think that each year's shows are a little bit better. And I know that Johnny wanted to save some of the better videos for next week when he's going to be using this new technology. But anyway, hopefully that answers the question.
Now, how do you get involved with pyrotechnics? What is was that part of your career, or something you got into later
No,
on?
I was a software engineer. So what happened was a buddy of mine from work said, hey, I'm going to a fireworks training class this weekend. Do you want to come along? And I said, sure. And it's interesting because he actually thought that if he went to that class, he would then be able to buy some of these fireworks, which wasn't at all the purpose of the class. And I had no idea what I was going to, but I'll try anything new. And so I went to the class, and it was basically for pyrotechnicians who wanted to, put on fireworks shows, and I started out, as everybody does, as an assistant. So I was working for a lead pyrotechnician, and as I gained experience, it got to the point where they offered to let me do my own shows, and so I've been doing. I mostly have well. I've done a lot of shows out on the Oregon coast or the Washington coast, which is a great place to do the shows because on the 4th of July, you're closer to the ocean. It's not as hot when you're working to set things up. And but that's how I got into it.
Now, no one will realize this. Obviously, you and I, with our familiarity with pyrotechnics, you see the difference between the stuff, the bigger shows we do here in New York. 99% of it, I'd say 100% of it, is run by a remote trigger electronically.
Right.
So it can be, but this one is lit by hand. Explain that.
Yeah, so there are really 3 ways to set off a fireworks show. The first way, which is what we do, is hand lighting it. The second way is to use an electrically fired show where you just have a panel of switches and you push a button and the shell ignites and goes off. And you push the next button and the shell ignites and goes off. And the third way is to have a computer fire the show. And typically, whenever you whenever you want to synchronize a fireworks show to music, you have to use a computer. And when they're programming the computer, they know for each shell, this shell takes 0.4 of a second from the time you ignite it until the time that it bursts. So they know they want it to burst at a particular time in the music. They subtract 0.4 of a second, and they program the computer to ignite that shell 0.4 of a second before it needs to ignite. And basically every single shell is programmed into the computer program to be ignited at the proper time so it reaches maximum altitude and bursts at the proper time.
So now when you're sitting in it, now, okay, like that's a very highly controlled way of managing as much as you can, right? Because some of that's going to change with the like I learned at being a pilot there, with the weight of the air, right? The humidity, the moisture, and how it's going to travel, right?
Well, what happens is the shell is going to ignite, a particular shell. Every shell is different, but if it's going to ignite 0.4 of a second after you light it, it's going to explode. It might get to a different altitude, it might blow in a different place, but it's still going to ignite in the 0.4 of a second.
Got it. That's very interesting.
But in any case, that's a time-consuming and a process that requires, special skill to know how to program that computer. So they're only going to use a computer-fired display if it's set to music. Okay, but any of the bigger shows are going to be electrically fired. In fact, if you have any shell that's bigger than 6 inches in diameter, by law, it must be electrically fired. You can't get that close to hand light it. So it's only going to be the smaller shows, 6-inch shells or smaller, where it's even permitted to be hand lit. And then, even then, what often happens is, because more than half of all the fireworks shows that are shot on the 4th of July, no company has enough electrical panels to light every show electrically. So they're going to light the bigger or the more expensive shows electrically and choose the smaller shows to hand light.
Okay, so we basically have an analog and a digital way of doing the in a way,
In
So,
a way,
but you still gotta know. Okay, I get all that. So now you, so because we get a shot, and next week we'll try to step through these images, a series of images, so the audience can get kind of a better idea of what goes on. But you see the person laying there, like at that last piece before we got to the slow-mo, right? So how are they timing it? Are they
okay.
counting? Well,
So what happens is when we set up the show, we know that the opener, you light the opener, which is what you saw going off there, and then after the opener, you light individual shells about 2 to 3 seconds apart. In other words, if you're lighting the shells, for example, every 2 to 3 seconds, your show is going to last about 18 to 22 minutes, which is about how long they want the show to last. And what I will be doing, I always like the finale. I mean, that's one of the prerogatives of the lead pyrotechnician. But up until the finale, especially since there may be people that, for everybody, it's the first time that they've hand lit, I will be sort of guiding them, say, okay, now, so that they get a feel for the pace of it.
and that gets, I've been around enough pyro in my time. People usually don't get as close as I get. It gets hot I know they got the suit on, right?
Yeah, so actually the heat isn't as, you know, what's really exciting is the logo of the company when they used to do more handlit shows was Feel the Thunder. And boy, when you're right up close, you know, the percussion of the shell going off, that's really all the thrill is. I mean, I've gotten sufficiently experienced that they've offered, Herb, if you want to do a bigger show. I said, not if it's electrically lit. I want to stay on the handlit shows.
It's
So
funny. It's funny you say that. Because even in the laser shows, many of them, most of them today are what they call SMPTE. You probably use the same time code. Basically, it's just
yes,
a timing system.
yes.
And the laser operators would be aboard with that. And there's others that have to shoot the show live, you know. So every laser hit is somebody actually sitting there doing it. And of course, everybody loves that. Rather than, you know, basically what you're doing is you're monitoring the equipment if it's a SMPTE show, if it's a triggered show. You're just sitting there kind of like, you're letting the robot run it. But it's much more exciting when you have it at your fingertips and you can see the crowd go, you know, crazy. So yeah, I absolutely understand the draw of that. But now that I've gone on, so is somebody cueing you like, because I can't believe that the thrill of the moment, how are you counting down? 1, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4.
That's the experience of it. So no, what happens is, so when we're loading the shells, except for the opener and the finale and some occasional mid-show volleys that they may have set up, what we have is a mix of 4-inch and 5-inch mortars, and we have a box of shells, and the rule we go by is don't put two of the same shell next to each other. In other words, mix them up. But they don't say put the red shell first and then the yellow shell. They just give me a box of shells and we just drop them into the mortars. And as long as we're not putting all the reds together and then all the blues together, as long as they're mixed, that's my prerogative as the lead to do. And likewise, they tell me that they want the show to last, 18 to 22 minutes. And because I have the experience, because I've worked on this enough time, I sort of have a feel of the rhythm. You know, many of the less experienced people don't have that rhythm, and that's why they're assistants. They're not the lead pyrotechnician. And I just try and keep the show on the pace that they want. And the company's philosophy is if the sponsor is happy with the show, then it's my first right of refusal to do the same show the following year. If the sponsor is not happy, then I'm not going to be doing that show next year. But I've been doing these shows now for a long time.
Okay, before we drill into the start, thank you. That was all great. Good information. Before we deal into the technical parameters of the cameras, how do I phrase this? Oh, do you have a funny story or something that really like happened that shouldn't have happened, that might have happened to somebody else? I'm not even accusing you of it, so we don't get that involved. But you can you have any stories like that? Like unusual things? Like
Okay, so actually, one of the things that's interesting about fireworks, obviously, this is hazardous material. So, in order to move it, I have a commercial driver's license with a hazmat endorsement, which allows me to drive the truck full of fireworks. And so you have to have placards on the truck. And whenever you're driving a truck with placards, you have to follow a route plan. And basically, hazardous material can't be stored unsupervised. So when the show is all over, all the fireworks have to be used up. In other words, if there is one shell left, if I put it in the truck, I have to put placards on the truck, and then I have to guard the truck all night, which means I don't get any sleep. And if I took that shell into the hotel room with me, the hotel, if they knew about it, probably wouldn't be happy. So to make a long story short, everything has to be shot during the show. And typically, that doesn't always happen. In other words, some of the shells won't go off. They're still in the mortars. So when the whole show is over, before we take everything down, we have to go around with a flashlight, make sure every mortar is empty. And if it's not, we have to shoot the shell off, even though it's after the finale. So people are, the finale's gone off. We've got the big round of applause. Everybody's leaving, and then another shell goes off. And that happens with every show because you need to use it all up.
You don't want to go back in the truck. Here in New York, there's a lot of regulations. Even when you're using fog at this point, actually, that was because of Kanye West. He fogged out Madison Square Garden so badly that the police were called. The fire department showed up 8 times, which it was $5,000 for each one of those violations. But it went right to the mayor. It got so complicated that now, just for fog, at this point, you have to have a what they call local license. The guy's got to be there. But the same thing is it works the same way in the garden or any of these locations. There's a pyro room, right? That's locked. Same thing. You're not in that room. Room is locked. And that's where all the pyro sits and all the guys build. And I've got shots of them too. I'm going to try to pull some of that out. I know I have them, and I have the machine. I have all the gadgets you're talking about. I've shot those at shows numerous times, and I watch things go awry. That's why I say it. I have learned along the way. The farther you away from the guy shooting those things, the better off your life is going to be. Although I have all the trust in every one of you. I have given up trying to get close to the pyro. That I can tell you.
So I can tell you from where we're shooting the fireworks, if something goes wrong, when you're talking about just between the time you light it and the time it explodes,
Sure,
you don't have time to escape. So if something goes wrong, you're there.
That's what those outfits are about. You must have. I can't imagine how hot it is inside one of those insulated uniforms, right?
Yeah, that Liberty Lake show, when it was over 100 degrees, that wasn't a fun show to do. So what had happened was I had been doing for years the Astoria, Oregon fireworks show, but I had been delivering shells to Long Beach, Washington. It was like one of the stops on my route. And so one year they said, hey, do you want to do the Long Beach show? That's also a handlit show. So I said, yeah, I do. So I shot that show, and it was a great show. And So I was just expecting to be able to shoot that show, every year. And what happened was the following year, the guy had been doing it before me said, I want my show back. And so what happened was I had given the Astoria show to one of my buddies, and then then the Long Beach show got taken away from me, and they didn't have any other show to send me to except Liberty Lake, which was a 2-day drive, and driving a truck for 2 days is not fun.
Especially with stuff that can go boom. So what? Yeah. So okay. Last question about this part of it, because we'll get into some cameras. So you got that big truck loaded with stuff that can go boom. Now you're checking into a motel. Tell me the motels you pick, because I'll never pick one of those.
Okay, so
Yeah.
actually, so I don't pick any of this stuff. What happens is because I work as an employee for Western Display Fireworks, and so they get all the insurance. They have to pay workman's comp
And all
because
that, right.
basically what happens is that's the way that I am protected, and also the public is protected. So they pick all the hotels.
That's
But
it,
okay,
right.
so now here's an interesting story.
That's what I was looking for.
Okay, so most of the time I'm like a 4 or 5 hour drive, so I can do it in one day. But this was like more than I could drive. So they put us up in a hotel. Now you can't leave the fireworks locked in the truck. So they had me park the truck. They had like a secured police and fire. I'm not sure what it was. It was like outside of town. It was a secure area. And so they we had to drive there and identify ourselves, and then they pulled the truck into this locked yard, which basically was considered a safe place to stay. And so then my wife and I needed to get back to the hotel that we were staying in. And so it would have been this was way out of town. It would have been pretty expensive to get a cab, but anyway, the company had another plan in store for me. Basically, we got a ride with one of the policemen in the back of a police car.
There you go.
And if you've never sat in the back of a police car, you don't want to do it. There's no padding on the seats. There's nothing, because the people they normally have in the back of the police car are not very nice people. So you don't want anything that they can tear up or destroy. It was basically rock hard seats, not a lot of space, and so that was not a fun ride.
No, that's you trying to make it. I just love that whole thing you got to go through so people could stand there for 20 minutes and be amazed. And the way now we're going to get on to the cameras, because the way that we shot, like I keep saying to folks, again, because of the distance of the cameras, you don't perceive fireworks that way in nature.
Unless you are willing to have your eye separation surgically increased
by a pretty large distance, as it turns out. And that really, even I know people have drone footage, going through but this is not like that at all. Because there's no other way to experience it than this way. And that is so fascinating, because just the way that these you think about it, what it is, these chemical reactions, right? And being affected by gravity, because you really could see the effect of gravity when he does the slow-mo, man, and that whole background, you literally could see the effect of gravity on that slow pull down. And it's a gorgeous way of experiencing it. From now on, if I look at fireworks and it's not in 3D, I'm like, puff, who needs that? No, I'm kidding. I still like being around when things blow up, as it turns out, but that is really it's a wonderful touch. Now, and another one of those things I would have not imagined, but for the fact that you guys decided to do something that was so amazing, and I would have not even imagined that. Why would that make a difference in the perception of it? But You bumped into something there. Now let's get onto the cameras. I know that how many were there?
Okay, so Mark, for the most recent show that's on the Blu-ray, Mark had 50 cameras. So that's a few of those were actually stereoscopic cameras. Most of those were not. So, you know, the 50 cameras worked out to perhaps 28 stereo pairs.
Now you're smart guys, so I know somehow you didn't just randomly set them up.
No.
I was
So,
confident of that.
okay, so what happened is we did some research. We knew that the shells, if the mortars are perfectly vertical, which they were for the Liberty Lake show, then a 5-inch shell is going to burst at about 500 feet. Now that's approximate. It depends on the wind. It depends on other things. A 4-inch shell is going to burst at about 400 feet. So what Mark did was he said, okay, if I go about 450 feet away from the mortars and aim my cameras at a 45-degree angle, they will be aimed in a place that I'm going to be able to get both the 4-inch shells and the 5-inch shells bursting. And then he said, based on the separation, he wanted to put the cameras about 15 to 20 feet apart. And during the day, try and aim them as best as he could, which wasn't always perfect. If the wind shifted, it might not be exactly, correct. But he, set up different cameras aimed a little bit differently so that some of the cameras might not capture anything and some of them would capture what he wanted.
Now, how did that evolve? In other words, on the first show that you did he use 50 cameras, or did it evolve to 50?
No. In the
Aha!
first show, he had much fewer. I don't know the exact number.
It's fine.
What he's been doing is he's been buying used cameras on eBay, and slowly increasing the number of cameras, slowly increasing the different stuff he got. Some taller tripoles, some, I don't remember what they're called, these big poles that just go up in the air 15 feet, and buying all these things to keep doing a better and better job.
Now they're all, because we have not shown any of the stills, right? So he's taking stills from video, or is he shooting separate stills and video?
Okay, all of the stills that I provided were frame grabs from the video.
Got it. That makes sense. What kind of video cameras will he use? Not that we want to steal his thunder.
Okay, so basically, what he has gotten to the point of doing is the cameras on the ground are, whatever he can find used. They're 30 frame per second video cameras. The cameras that he uses to capture the aerial shells, they're 60 frame per second cameras. And the reason he wants that, now remember, there's no cabling or synchronization, no gen lock between the cameras. So if he's using a 60 frame per second camera, then even if they're, the maximum amount out of sync between the two frames, they're still, about, a 60th of a second error. And on a 60th of a second error, you might notice it on a still, you're going to say that's not synced. But on a video,
sure,
you just don't see that.
It's running right by. That's excellent. That's excellent thinking. Now, I guess he must force the, he's got to have, there must be very adjustable cameras, like some you can't turn off the automatic
he has to put all the cameras on manual mode, because when it's dark, because the first time he tried it, the camera would keep trying to refocus.
Sure. Yep.
And so he had to force the cameras to manual mode. And when he selects cameras, he'll only select cameras that can be put in manual mode.
That's one hell of an experiment. And you know what? I could continue with you for the next half hour, but there's going to be a lot of people that have probably much more better questions in mind. You have been wonderful. You know,
Okay, so let me just mention that Mark did write an article for Stereo Views, which is the monthly newsletter of the Cascade Stereoscopic Club, back in January 2020. And I put a link in the chat so you can download that article. And that has a lot of detail in there for, I mean, not that I'm going to say, oh, if you read the article, you'll have the answer, so I won't answer it. But for somebody who's looking for the maximum amount of detail, that's a good place to look.
how generous of both of you. And I don't know who's done this before, but it looks like you guys did something that, you know, for the first time. And what a wonderful thing to do, especially that way. Because you're an inside man. It's not like you went to somebody went to shoot it and had to work around it, but you're an inside guy. So and your experience in 3D. I don't know how that's ever going to happen again. I love when those things come together, and that's exactly what happened here. So great. So we're gonna now change gears, and we're gonna see you in the after party. So stand by. Because and again, thank you so much. Hey, where's my little hands? That doesn't matter. There's going to be a lot of great questions for you in the after party. So thank you once again for sharing your experiences and your talent. It's phenomenal.
Well, I'm glad that folks enjoyed it. Happy
Oh,
to do it.
you kept everybody here. You did a great job. You know, I was watching. Dude, you didn't bore. I was the only thing that bored anybody. You did a very good job. Thanks again. Hey, you know, speaking of, so we'll see you in the after party.